What is going on, everyone? This is Drew Davis, and we are back for another episode of Learn How to See Better. And one of the things I want to do on this episode is talk about something a little negative. Can we do that? Can we do that on this positive-minded, positive-focused podcast that is about teaching people how to see the world through different eyes and learn how to live a better life through changing the paradigms that you view the world through? How can we shift to something negative? Well, the fact of the matter is I want to talk about something negative for a second because it has to do with the positivity. It's kind of hard to have good without evil. It's hard to fly without gravity. So when you're talking about some positive things, there is going to be a negative side of the coin that we want to look at and sometimes deal with. In this case, the negative element of this podcast is actually the theme. And the theme of the episode, the session, the title is Why Bother? It's like, okay, that's actually a question. What's so negative about it? Well, it's negative in just how it sounds and rolls off the tongue. Why bother? But let's look deeper than that. Why bother is a question, right? Simple question. But it's a question that questions an attempt, that questions why even start on the journey? Why even go that direction? What sense does it make for a logical, reasonable individual to go down such a path? And this was a question that I actually asked myself. If you can believe it or not, I found myself rattling around this question more than one time in my head. And you know what it was related to? It was related to this actual end product that you're listening to right now, this very podcast, this idea, this creation. Why bother? Well, I'll tell you why bother. And I'll start with a little bit of backstory so this all comes together a little bit better. Learn how to see better is a concept that I came up with. It's been over a year now, at least, because I decided I wanted to write another book. And what I wanted to do this time around is really dig a lot deeper, not just a subject that I know well, that I can talk about, but something that's really been encoded into the DNA of who I am. And so in this case, that subject matter is personal development. And the area of personal development, some people call it self-help, self-improvement, whatever. It's really all the same bucket of goodness. It's trying to reach your maximum potential, right? To turn that potential energy kinetic and get it moving so you can reach your true potential, reach your goals. So when I was introduced to personal development by accident over a decade ago, I found myself in a place in life where I was, you could say, happy, but I had some issues. And it wasn't that I was just such a flawed character person. I was raised right, but I just had a few errors in judgment that were repeated fairly often. And some were in some areas, some were in others. And I looked at it from the standpoint of I see myself as having the potential to be a better person, right? You think of think of yourself, right? You probably aspire to be better than you are 5 years ago, right? You probably aspire to be better 10 years from now than you are today, right? And again, that first question could come back, well, why bother? Well, there's always a deeper why driving us, right? We all ought to be pretty clear on, our core values and the core things that we're focused on at the heart of it all. But when you say why bother, it's kind of like, why even make the effort to commit to that journey? And so, I wanted to slap my own wrist for even having the thought rattle around in my head. How's the personal development guy? I got this doubt running around. But when I made the decision to start this podcast, there was a couple reasons in mind. One, I told you that I wanted to create something that was this book, and I'm still probably going to come out with the book. It just happened to manifest itself in the form of this podcast, which is essentially sharing all the great ideas out in a much more fluid format anyway. But Learn How to See Better, a book that I'd author and share some of the best lessons encapsulated in categories, and share how you can actually learn how to see better by using these different categories to be able to shape your life. Okay, pretty straightforward, but also, some very powerful content, some great content that'll be in there. And what I found is that, the perfectionist in me, didn't get that project done, right? Took some of those initial steps, but never brought it to fruition. And we've all had projects that we've started, kind of these half-built bridges out there that never quite get finished, these great ideas that never happen. Well, those instances can actually kind of chip away at, they can chip away at our confidence, for one. They chip away at our belief in what's possible in the world, particularly in the world for ourselves, right? And what I saw was, in this case, not a lot of people that I know, across the total spectrum of all of my contacts really tune into this channel, because, people will be quick to say, yeah, you like to listen to that bunny foo-foo stuff and go to those rah-rah events. And it's like, yes, I do. And do you see the difference it's made in my life in the last decade? Can you argue with that, right? And, the crazy thing about it is just this idea of personal development being something that I could, freely and passionately speak on and touch on and attempt to teach, right? And use this tool. And as I continue to grow, I recognize that I have walls that I hit, temporary barriers that I encounter in that path. It's no different than hitting a plateau in a workout, right? You've been doing the same workout routine and you find like, man, I'm hitting a wall. What's going on here? Can't seem to push past this. And so in my arena, you start to get into a scenario where you've been studying a particular area or a particular set of subjects for quite a bit, and you feel pretty well versed, but you can sometimes feel like there's still something missing. And for me, part of my growth journey is one of not just absorbing the information, going out and getting, right, and getting smarter and being smarter and acquiring the knowledge, but it's also being able to process, translate, and regurgitate it, share it with the world. I mean, some of the things I've learned, they come in a pretty complex, hairy format, right? They're not always the most easy to digest, but since a young age, I've learned that I kind of have a knack for that. I've got a knack to be able to take, complex technical concepts and break them down into very basic, bite-sized, easy to comprehend pieces. Okay. And so that's something that I feel I do well. And it's so valuable in this arena, because if you can have an aha moment that changes your life, and it doesn't have to be, requiring, 110% of your current brain capacity to even process. No, simple things you just haven't been exposed to before. But why bother? Why bother? Well, why bother? Because, there's a lot of people that are just kind of going through the motions, just floating through the ocean, and everything is A-okay. Good ship lollipop, right? So, what you find is that we can create a scenario in our heads where we think, if there's nobody out here listening, nobody out there caring, why take that first step, right? Why attempt to put yourself out there and, be the object of ridicule? And one of the important things, I think, for me on this journey is to not just share what I've learned, but share it in a relatable format, right? I'm no one so much more special than someone else that I could say, well, only if you're me could you have figured out these great life secrets. Rather, it's the exact opposite. It's me here going, hey, I was 35 when I learned this thing I'd never heard before. And just by applying these 2 tiny adjustments to my life, this got better and that got better and this got easier and this was just more rewarding. And that's what I feel like we're all doing. We're kind of stumbling through life with a bunch of keys and a bunch of locked doors. And we've got most of the keys and some that we haven't used yet, and some that, look like they're in disrepair. And then you see some doors you don't even think you want to enter. And then some other doors that seem locked. And it can be this process of just exploration, trial and error. And when you get to a point where you unlock some doors that you never even realized were out there to go through, and they present a whole new landscape for you, it can be pretty powerful, pretty dazzling. And one of the things that's important to me is to be able to capture the experience in such a way that it can be shared with another individual and paint that picture so they could see it as if they were right there, right? To be able to feel that cool wind breeze just enough to kind of tickle the hairs on your ear and on the back of your neck, in the fall when the leaves are changing and the days are getting a little bit shorter, right? You want to be able to paint those pictures and help translate that experience and convey that to someone else. But why bother if no one's trying to go there, right? You never know. And I think that the reason that I bother is I think there's a certain growth that can come with just the willingness to share. It's like, it's almost like keeping a journal or a diary, right? Most people wouldn't do that with the thought that someone's going to go ahead and read all that person's secrets to the world, right? But if you're just really trying to document your experience and essentially have that same effect of being able to capture the experience in a journaled format and have that be repeatable as a way to preserve the memories, for me in the selfish fashion. But if I were looking to teach a specific lesson that I learned, what better way to get it than to shortly after that lesson was learned, or once that lesson was truly comprehended, right? Once taught, twice learned. Then you get to a point where you can actually teach it and be able to freely give and share that. I mean, we live in the information age where everything's so abundant. You can pretty much know anything about anything. It's out there, right? And for a lot of people, you'll find that just the way the world works, a lot of those gates are locked and they are golden keys to enter. And I purchased some of those golden keys to get into some of those locked doors, and it's been worth every penny and then some. But what I find is that I go through such an experience and a transformation from some of these investments in myself that it's like the goodness is spilling over out of my cup. It's radiating out of me. And there's a responsibility that I feel and a need to be able to share that, because we all have struggles, right? We all have struggles. We all have walls that we hit in every single arena of our life. And I'm no different. But I feel that part of what has helped me obtain different results than most people is a different philosophy. And to be able to have that positive outlook and seeing how it's translated into positive outcome. I mean, I think probably one of my greatest traits, if I were to say about myself, is perseverance. I might just not be smart enough to quit. So, that's one of those things that sounds pretty good when you hear the quote that says, "Hey, you'll never fail if you never quit." So I guess I'm in good shape then, right? But we do get to a point where we have in our lives so little time, right? It's the same amount of time, but so many decisions we have to make that we have to reduce the number of things that we focus on. And what I'm seeing and what I'm saying is essentially, for me, it's that time to make sure that I am taking some of the best learning that I've accumulated in the past decade and some of the specific things that I'm being educated on right now. I need to capture and encapsulate these things, because if it's not for just my own benefit and retention, but I truly believe that there are things here that are going to be able to spark an aha in someone else's life for positive change, even if it's just change for them internally. And that excites me, because I've had those Maxwell House moments where it's like you woke up and just smelled the coffee. I've had those light bulbs go off in my head where you get exposed to just a simple quote or an idea or a different way of looking at things. And it's just a bursting ray of bright sunlight that just shines right through you. And from that moment, you know that you're forever changed. And these can be these little miniature epiphanies along the way also. But that's what I want to share. I feel like everyone should be able to witness the beauty of a silent sunrise with maybe just a few birds chirping in the background, right? But there's some people that are born with no eyesight, and will never get to actually experience that. And similarly, I think some of the great wisdom of the world unfortunately hasn't really made its way around. I think just some basic information that people could be exposed to would just help them make better decisions about how to navigate through their own life. And that seems to me like it should be a right that everyone should have, to kind of live a good and happy life. And if you can learn how to do a few things better, make a few better decisions, it can make a world of difference in your time here, right? So why not be able to share that? Why not be able to let that out of the cage and run free and roam wild? Because that's the opposite of the mentality of a why bother. It's the champion that says, no, I'm not going to take the easy road and just say, well, everyone else can go out there and find this information and scuff their knees and elbows up the same ways that I did. What if I have the power to take some great ideas and translate them in a way to one or many other people with a slight different twist that's essentially my interpretation through my own perceptual filters that happen to shine that light in that perfect hue that gets through to you, and forevermore you're thinking in a way that's new. And that's the game changer right there. And so why I bother is because I'm up for the challenge. It's my time to grow in ways that I have not before. It is my time to push myself in ways that I have not before. And it is time for me to start taking those initial steps. If I want to live, love, learn, and leave a legacy, guess what? You better start leaving something, right? I got a library full of books that would make me a cajillionaire 20 times over if I did every single thing in them, right? But the idea is, in some of those same books lie the answers to deep, burning questions in many minds and in my mind many times. And information that once unlocked, once accessed, once interpreted, can really be a fundamental shift in the way we behave, the way we live, who we become, the things we do, what we get in the world. So why would we not want to go on a journey like that? So what I found through my experience with the whole why bother idea was that even though me recognizing to go out on this interesting, unique journey to essentially give a live documentary of what's going on in my world, specific to the lessons that I'm learning and how I'm taking continued steps to grow and to be able to help serve more people. Whether I'm a massive success or a smashing failure, you get to watch it all and be entertained, right? I think there's a song, My Life, Your Entertainment. But the real idea is that my life could be an example, could be a demonstration of what's possible for you, how you can take control of your life, how you can design your life, how you can use the different types of vision, reflection, introspection, and others to actually get a better understanding of who you are internally and what your outlook is on the world and the things that you truly want, to actually be able to look within as a way to look ahead, right? So why I'm bothering to do this is because I have a message and I need to share it. And this is the platform by which I can more freely do so. You probably still will see the book, Learn How to See Better, coming, soon enough. But the landscape is expanding because, again, I'm in a chapter of my life where it is all about growth. It is all about development, and the stages that I'm in with my youngest son, that's just a couple of months old, to my oldest son going into first grade this fall, right? We're in that window of time where kids are getting some real developmental learning, and I'm actually learning about myself by understanding better how they learn, how they're growing up, how they're loving, how they're behaving, right? What frustrates them, what gets them, riled up. And so I'm learning how to see better as a parent, as a husband, as a leader. And that's why I bother, because I'm transforming. I'm going through this process of becoming, different people all at once. Transforming the process of, living abundantly and shifting the mindset from a world that I operated in, 5 years ago, gainfully employed, and now I'm a full-on entrepreneur, not looking back. What kind of transition does that lead to in my life? What does that make of me through that experience, right? So should have started this a while back. So why bother now? Because this should have happened. This should have been going on, right? 3 years ago. But you know what? Best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. What's the second best time? Today. So that's what I'm going to do about it. I'm going to bother to take a stand, to start documenting this journey, to bring as many of you along with me that are up for the task, up for the challenge, ready to rock and roll, ready to go, ready to push, ready to get it. As we go into the next decade, this is going to be quite the experience. So that's what I wanted to share. Why I'm bothering to do this. Why I've produced now over 50 episodes of this podcast in 9 weeks, 60 days. I'm on a tear right now, just trying to pour it all out and get it all out there, because once the content is available, then it can be consumed by the masses when the individuals that are ready to find it are ready. And that's what I am poised to do, is push as much great goodness out there as I can as short a time frame as possible to maximize the impact that I can have, as well as force me to improve and grow by taking this information and fully translating. Some of the stuff I've read, I've just had rattle around in my noggin for quite some time. There's the point at which you've got to be able to actually translate it and regurgitate it so that someone else can take and digest that. And so that's why I bother to do what I'm doing with this podcast. And so this is not a negative thing. It starts with a negative tone, admittedly, but this is a positive thing, because you should be asking yourself, why bother? Or if you're asking yourself, why bother, you ought to have a pretty good answer to the question. Why would you bother to pursue your next goal? Why are you going to bother to get up an hour earlier than usual? Why are you going to bother to not hit that drive-thru on the way home, as opposed to taking whatever out of the freezer and thawing it for 90 minutes and then cooking it, right? Why bother reading that book that might change your life? Why bother walking around the block, after dinner? It's hot outside, right? Why bother? Well, so many things I've learned about that are easy to do are also easy to not do. So you can have the why bother approach to things, but when I'm asking even myself why bother, I'm challenging myself to come up with a better response. Because if you don't have a better response to that question, then guess what? You're probably going to say, yeah, you know what? I don't know why I'd bother. And boom, you're done, right? Whether it was a dream, a goal, a task, a good intent, you've shot it dead. You shot it down. And so that is what I would want the takeaway from this to be. If you've got questions and doubts about some of the things that you're focused on that feel right, that question may come up. Why bother? But don't back down from it. Stand up to the question, dig your heels in, think long and hard about why you're bothering to do what you do, and then clarify, testify, shout it out if you got it. And that's what I want you to see here. And we're going to keep this going. And again, continue to pour into you guys. And I can't wait to start getting some more feedback from how this information is starting to help you all grow, shape, and see the world through different eyes. So until next time, thank you guys as always for tuning in. Be sure to subscribe and share this with a friend. And I will see you on the next episode of Learn How to See Better. Thanks.
The podcast you just heard was made using Anchor. Ever thought about making your own podcast? Anchor makes it really easy for anyone to get started. It's a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing podcasts. Best of all, it's 100% free. Sign up now at anchor.fm/new. That's anchor.fm/new to get started.